we know each other from being involved with the Kesh movement, right? And what
Right.
an amazing wave of information and connecting a lot of us that was and has been. I mean, we're looking back at 2014, 2015.
Yeah, almost 10 years ago.
It's amazing. Wow, is that
And
possible?
I know, and you brought
Oh,
this revolution to us in South Africa. It was so incredible, those workshops.
it was incredible. It was so fun, so soul touching, so connecting,
I know.
and
And interestingly enough, I just, my mom went and got some GANs from one of the South Africans that have had, has kind of taken it forward and done a lot
nice.
of work with it. So it's
Hmm.
developed. Some people have done cosmetic ranges with
Right.
GANs,
The one
like
lady, I think I've heard from her several times that did that.
Eileen.
Eileen, yeah, her name is
Eileen did
Eileen.
the quantum range. It's
Hmm.
beautiful.
Fabulous.
So it's amazing.
And Tom Salas is still over here in Mexico making these amazing necklaces and different things that people can wear that are protective items. And he puts the stuff in water in the freezer and takes pictures of it, and there's these
Oh, wow.
explosive fields coming off of it. So it's really neat.
Wow. Yeah, I
Yeah,
had so much fun with
me
that
too.
journey. I mean, I made GANS tubes that I was selling to
Yeah.
people that they could wear around their bellies, and then I was selling them in
Yes.
Bali with Sasha Stone, and
Yeah.
people were dancing, at his place with them on and loved them. And I mean, it's very creative, actually.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
love the one of you guys from the airport where you had been
Yes. The
wearing them
imprint.
in
I
the imprint
know.
in the machine. That was amazing.
Yeah, the magnetic memory of the bracelet, even though we didn't have the
Right.
bracelet on, it was still
Right.
showing.
Yeah, very cool. So you've
Amazing.
been dry fasting, and what took you on this journey, which is really, really,
Okay.
really interesting to me personally. I would love to just live without food. It seems like a real option, but I think we have some evolution to go in this physical body to get there. But I'm really curious. I've done fasting.
Yeah.
I've done up to 7-day water fasting. But it's been a
Mm.
long time. I haven't done any recently. And but I do intermittent fasting. So I eat, between a certain number of hours in the day, maybe 6 hours, and then the rest of it is fasting in a 24-hour period. So that's another interesting way to lighten up things on the body. But I'm really excited
Mm.
to hear what you've learned and what you've been doing.
Yeah, so I'll just share a bit of my story. So I ran into chronic health issues um, sort of over the last 4 or 5 years, and it just wasn't getting better. So I was trying all the different options, like, so it's the diagnosis was chronic Lyme and co-infections, and I was trying many, many different things and
And the
really
thing
feeling
is, you've
terrible.
you've done so many great things too. I mean, you were using the Therify, Dan Winter's Therify, pretty
Hmm.
regularly, right? And
Yes.
and all your exposure to the plasma products. And
Hmm.
were you vegetarian, or what was your um
I was vegetarian for a long time, for 20 years, growing up. But at some point, I made a change of my diet. And so, you know, just made a change. So no, not
not
anymore. But
recent?
it's meat is not a big feature for me.
Uh-huh. So, and I had just told you also that I started keto about 9 months ago, and that's been really beneficial for
Mm.
me, getting more protein, less carbs, and a dance with that after many years of being pure vegetarian and vegan. And for me, it's mostly including fish. But
Mm.
but anyway, that's a whole nother subject. So,
Yeah, and maybe we can touch on it, like we can, because it weaves in the whole refeeding of the body, and like for me, learning how to feed my body correctly, because this particular doctor that I sought out is a Siberian expert. He's been dry fasting in the Russian hospitals for 40 years.
Wow.
And has learned from all the masters.
Wow.
And of course, they are very open-minded in Russia. They've actually got technology, like ancient practices that are still running.
Yes.
And I can't wait to share a little bit about this Dr. Sergey Filonov, because in the dry fasting field is quite small. And so there's names, it's like Dr. Sergey Filonov, who was my doctor, is one of the very important names. And I've even I took his book out. It's not the greatest translation. There are some mistakes, but it's a very good book.
Can you get that on Amazon?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Dry Fasting by Sergey Filonov. There's his name.
Great. I'll have to check that out. Very good.
There's a little picture of him. That was when he was a lot younger. In some of the hospitals. But he's an incredible, unbelievable, shamanic, intuitive, medical, well-trained doctor, and very, very experienced. But also this heart of gold. Absolutely loves his people into life and works with his 2 daughters, and they're in his team, his dry fasting retreat team. And so what
were your symptoms that drew you to do this? Because you said you were wrestling with Lyme, but what were you?
Yeah, still in the middle of it. Oh my God, I was so sick. I have still got massive, really chronic symptoms. So I'm still on the path, but
you look great.
Thank you very much. I know that's one of the things that people say with the Lyme. Unfortunately, it doesn't always look like you're not always looking like you have suffering.
Yeah. One of the things I learned, just as an aside in my studies, is that stevia, the non-glycemic sweetener, but it's leaves that grow in South America. I don't know if it grows in Africa, but it actually will go through the blood-brain barrier, and it can clear things that are hiding in the cells, which is what Lyme does. It hides in the body. And so it's an interesting, neat, useful tool, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, chronic Lyme, there's different manifestations of it. Different people are in different places, but it's can be extremely difficult to resolve.
Right.
So there's quite a deficit of people coming through and finding healing, but there are cases where people are finding their way through it. And I just wasn't. And there was just so many things piling up. So a lot of trauma, a lot of change. And then I was trying to take, I tried everything. I tried aromatherapy. I tried skio. I tried homeopathy. I tried naturopathy. I tried antibiotics. And I have been over years trying to heal, and I just got extremely desperate.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things have also been amplified in laboratories. So we're not even dealing with an original microorganism.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. So in December, I just sort of prayed. I was like, please, God, you have to actually send me something, because I am really struggling. And the podcast of Michelle Slater, who is the woman who recovered from her chronic late stage Lyme through dry fasting with Dr. Filonov, she wrote a book on it. And I found it, and it was like, it just really called me. So
Mm.
I read the book and I found out that there were retreats, and I went to one of the retreats in March, April, and I'm just about to go back for another retreat
Mm. And you will
soon.
go, do you go to Russia to do that or?
No, it's they're hosting in Russia, but also in Europe
Uh-huh.
for the European community, because it's not that easy with the politics that's going on with, for Europeans and that, to get into Russia. I would
Mm.
love to go. He's got this magical place in Russia where he
Mm.
really uses the water, the rivers, the mountains as an energetic source, because you really feed on the prana, the pranic quality of
Oh,
the
I'm
environment. I mean, that's,
sure. Yeah.
you become
Abs
absolutely one with it.
yes. And this
Yeah.
field is really designed for us to receive our energy from it. I mean, that's part of the idea of that we're living in it. We're living in much more than just a 3D world. We're living in a multifaceted, energetic, dimensional existence, really. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I started to research breatharianism just to kind of get my mind, because you have to switch your mind,
right.
to a
Yes.
different dial. And so I was interested, how do the breatharians do it? Um, and Nassim Haramein is one of the people that has been a breatharian for years, actually.
Really?
Yeah, no, not anymore. But
Okay.
when he was doing it, he was living on his own in a van and just like communing with the cosmos and getting all these
Right.
downloads and not
Nice. And
needing
I've spent time with Jazz Muheen.
Oh, have you?
Actually back around Y2K, like 2000, in Mount
Okay.
Shasta. She was there
Oh, wow.
teaching, and I ended up at the events that were there for the big Y2K, uh,
Okay. Wow.
stuff that went on. And yeah, so it's very interesting to me. Um,
Yeah, I think at some point
I think we will
we'll
too.
switch
I think
into that
those who are
energetic.
there in consciousness, I think it's a consciousness choice for
Yeah, like a pranic feeding. I think so. And I think we'll always have the choice to, I mean, I can imagine in other atmospheres, we'll be different, really
yes.
different. We won't be as dense as we are here on Earth. So I think there's a lot of,
Yes.
you know, um, deep, deep change on a cellular level going on.
Well, can you share a little bit of what your experience was like to dry fast? I'd love to
Sure.
hear. And yeah, because we have this programming that says, you can only live a day without water, right? That's like where
Right.
are our fears that are built around the structure of this reality that may be false. And I
Mm.
think you're breaking through some of that.
So
With
this is 9 days without water or food, no contact with water, no brushing your teeth, no bathing, no showering, nothing, no contact. And it's medically supervised, so you wouldn't want to try and do anything like this at home. Um,
right.
but he has been working with this model for many, many decades, and with extreme success. So it's not as straightforward as it seems. It's actually a really a big journey, because there's a lot of
I'm
adjustments,
sure.
depending on how strong you are, how many adjustments you need to make. But anyway, let me share a little bit of. So I flew to Montenegro, which is where the retreat was being hosted, and there were 30 people from all over the world.
Wow.
This beautiful setting, and it was the first time I'd flown for I mean, since I think 2013. So probably, I don't know, I don't think I'd flown overseas, for that long, 10
Mm.
years. Um, so you prepare for your fast with specific sort of instructions. And then
So ahead of
you have,
time, I'm sure you're cleansing at some level, right? Before you go into
yes,
it,
yes, yeah,
lightening up
yeah.
your diet, et cetera. Yeah.
Yes, yes, you do colon and liver cleanses and a couple of months of preparation. And you have to consult with the doctor beforehand and tell him what it is that you're dealing with, and how many pills you're on, because you have to come off everything in order to fast. And yeah, like I said, it's a big journey. It's a big cleanup journey. So I got there, and I had 2 days before the retreat started where you have to start your dry fast. So you start dry fasting, and then the doctor gives talks every day, just really telling you what it is that's important. Movement is really important. Understanding what healing is happening, how like it's motivation, really. And then there's treatments as well every day. And we also did video testimonials of how we were, every day, telling a little piece of our story. And you're very held, and there's this slipstream of consciousness that it's not as hard as it seems. When you're there, it's like your consciousness just adjusts, and your body moves into an internal water source. So you actually do get water, but it's coming from the fat, and the fat converts into water and then feeds the cells.
Wow.
And at a certain point, the autophagy starts, which is the cells clean up. They sort of feed on their own waste matter.
The inflammation, right? Yes.
And they choose dead cells and infected and sort of alien cells and stuff like that first. And so that's the whole point of it, that at a certain point, there's no external influence. It's just everything's being cleaned up from within you.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, in this incredible, very deep way. And it triggers all sorts of stem cell regrowth and reboot in the system. And then you have a very monitored, once you've reached the 9 days, you have a very carefully monitored exit period.
That's what I was thinking, because that's been my difficulty. I think when I've fasted in the past, it always seems so extreme to me, and then I, overdo when I come out of it. So, how do you stay on a really gentle recovery or return to whatever your norm is going to be?
Yeah, so the exit is the most crucial thing. It's like 75% of the healing process. So that's a large part of why you go, is so that you monitored in your exit. Some people need to exit, if they're really, really sick and they get really, really bad symptoms, they need to have a doctor who has an expertise there to say, okay, you can stop your fast, you can come off it, or you can continue. And there's specific markers for that. And then you need at least sort of 4 days of supervised exit before you can sort of take over your own refeeding program. And it becomes a little bit of a practice, it's like throw away all your supplements, resupplement yourself through food, specific foods.
Right.
There's a whole world to learn about, really.
And we've done that with going at keto. We did what we called burn the ships. We just got everything out of our house that was off track for us, and pretty much we're eating vegetables and protein, and it's really doing us both good. And so I think that idea of making a change that's so big, because culturally, we're being fed information by the companies that are making processed foods and overindulgence. I've always said, overindulgence is the bane of our society. Really, what we really need to learn to do, unless we're living in a really poor nation, but in general, in the more cultivated world, learning to say no is our biggest. No, that's enough. No more of that. And to just enter into a yes that is very pure and clean and clear. And I love it that you're doing this. I've been feeling inspired just hearing about it from you, little glimpses in the distance. And so thank you for talking about it, because I think it's
thank you. I mean, if there's anyone who's interested in it, a good place to start is Michelle Slater's book, and that's also available on Amazon to download, in the Kindle.
And do you know what that book is called?
It's called Starving to Heal in Siberia. Let me just double check. I did send it to you. Starving to Heal in Siberia.
You did, right. I'll put it under the video.
Yeah, her radical recovery from late stage Lyme. And it's really well written, and it gives you a very good idea of what the dry fasting entails.
So what about, was there any fear you had to deal with when you initially went into it? Or the people in general who are going into it? I mean, what psychologically do you have to deal with to go into that kind of shift? Or did you just feel like you were in the arms of someone who knew what they were doing, and you just trusted and were confident of that?
I mean, Cary, I think what happened to me, and I think there are a lot of people, not everybody, but there are a lot of people that show up at something like that who are desperate, really desperate. Mm-hmm. And so you actually really in a state of desperation. You like, looking for something that is, outside of the box. And so at some point, when you kind of, it's like, well, death or dry fasting.
That's right. Yeah.
Which one do you want?
It's a bit
like that. Yeah. It's a journey. A very, I think a lot of people who are dealing with Lyme and, and including myself, have had a very long, dark night of the soul journey for various different reasons. Mm-hmm. And so in a way, I don't know, I can't really think about fears as much as just like I'm here because I really, really want to find my way.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, and like I said, it's not a straightforward solution. It's not without its challenges. You've got to become very disciplined. You've got to make changes on many levels in your life. What's good is, in a way, there's a lot of different people that you meet in retreats that have been working on themselves through dry fasting for years, and they've done many and not, it's not just like one or two necessarily to get better. I mean, there was one woman who, I think she did 6 or 7, something like that, and also healed herself from Lyme eventually.
How does the doctor that you worked with, how does he live? Does he periodically dry fast every year with his patients, or does he?
Yeah, so once you're in a healthy state, you have kind of like a maintenance dry fasting protocol. There's all sorts of different protocols, which is, for somebody who's healthy, they kind of recommend like once a year to do a long fast. And then some people do weekly, like a 1 day or a 36-hour, something like that. And then sort of every 3 months, maybe 3 days. So there's all sorts of protocols that people
for use. Like living. And then
living.
And does he recommend, what kind of diet does he recommend?
He's amazing. He loves nature. He just says nature has all the answers for us. And if we can stay close to the model of nature. So he's like an unbelievable expert in food. So he'll teach you, you know, about all sorts of things. But basically, he loves fish. He says fish can give you a very complete many things.
It's feeling very good to me. It's feeling very harmonious and helpful.
Yeah, so he likes fish, but then he is, you know, also Russian, Siberian.
Right, yeah.
Like the Russian bear, you know,
Yeah.
fishing from the river.
Uh-huh.
So, and just trying to think, you know, how.
So what are you doing? Like, what's your daily life like now that you're getting ready to go do another one? So, and
Right.
for instance,
So
you
he's
said
fine with coffee. He's fine with coffee. He says coffee is very good for the liver. The liver
it is.
loves
Uh-huh.
coffee.
Yeah.
It's got really great antioxidants and enzymes in it that the liver needs. And, you know, apparently when coffee meets with the liver, it creates a glutathione reaction. So it actually releases glutathione.
I kind of know that
system.
from the Gerson therapy, from using it in that. Yes, very good.
Yeah, and he recommends red wine because of also resveratrol, MAP kinase enzymes, things like that. Just, but all in balance and in moderation. And so my diet is oats with cacao and pumpkin seeds and a bit of honey in the morning after I have coffee, and then like a smoothie. He also loves quail's eggs. Quail's eggs also provide a very complete diet. You know, many
simpler
vitamins.
simpler cultures use those, I bet. Yeah.
And so I'll do a smoothie, and then maybe something like a fish soup or something like that.
Nice. So very light. You're eating very light in between.
Yeah. And then there's, you learn, you get specific exit formulas.
Yeah.
So you'd exit after a diet with, water very slowly at a specific time. Give your body time to rehydrate slowly, not too fast. And then you would add a fermented drink like kefir, also very slowly. And then compote, which is a specific Russian sort of mix, like apricots and apples and prunes and raisins in hot water. And that compote is actually really important for the brain after dry fasting, for the glycogen, I think.
Interesting.
Brain needs some glycogen.
Very good.
To get going again. And then, light soups and stuff like that.
And that's what I mean.
So it's quite an art. And I'm still very much a beginner. And
I think
it's
that's
really
that's what I'm doing as well, like on the simplification. Like, I just don't really want heavy foods anymore. Everything I eat is very light, very simple, and it feels much better. I mean, the whole process. So I think that I love hearing about that. And I think it takes courage. It takes courage or desperation, right?
Yeah, often it's desperation in these times, because we really have come through a health crisis, and people are scrambling for solutions that big pharma as such is not providing. So
overshadowing. Yeah, there's a lot of
huge detoxification of the system on so many levels.
Yes,
that is needed. And I know a lot of people. There's another good resource called the Dry Fasting Club. And this guy has been experimenting with dry fasting to help himself recover from long COVID. And he has very specific protocols and videos out.
Nice.
Weekly.
Good to know about.
YouTube. Yeah, the Dry Fasting Club. I mean, the difficulty with Dr. Filonov is he doesn't speak English.
Ah.
So it's all through a translator.
Uh-huh.
And you know, and I mean, he is just a wealth of knowledge. So you sit there in one lecture after the next for 12
Absorb.
days,
Mm.
listening to this knowledge just pouring out. And it's multidimensional, you know, in terms of
Beautiful.
health.
So when
And I
you
think
go ahead.
I just want to say this because, you know, what's very important about the 9 days, the 8 and 9 days, is that for disease, you get the state of the cellular heat, fire that starts a burn. And that burn is the thing that you aiming for. So your body gets very hot, and that sort of creates
Wow,
like
interesting.
a
How many
scorched effect. You know, it
and you're
burns
kind
out
of burning out the
the
dross,
bacteria and
that,
yeah,
yeah,
the disease really.
right. And how
So
many
that's what
days
you're
does it
looking
take to
for.
go into that?
So that's on the 9th day.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I said, it's very important to remember that, first of all, I'm not the doctor. You know, he would have very specific things to say, and every single person is different. You know, every single person is case by case. He listens to you, and depending on who you are, you know, your case would be nuanced.
Right. Very cool. Well, listen, I think we're just about out of time. So I'm
Yeah.
going to just thank you for sharing. This is really fascinating. I've been just longing to hear from you, what your experience has been, and just learn a little bit from it. I think it's really fascinating.
Thank you. And maybe we should also just link the woman that does the translation for Dr. Filonov's events. She's got a website of all of
Okay,
his events and stuff
great.
like that. I think
Yeah,
it's healthuniverse.com or something like that.
we'll look it
If
up,
anyone
and if you
wants
send it
to,
to me, we'll put it under the
right.
video.
Yeah.
Great.
Anyway, so thank you so much for being interested, you know, and you never know
Yeah.
who it could reach. And there's so
Yes.
many angles to come in on this work.
Thank you
So
for
it's
sharing.
a very deep clean. It's very multidimensional. It's old emotions that come out. It's just unbelievable how much memory we store in ourselves.
That is absolutely true. I know it for a fact. And on a more moderate scale, the things I'm doing with keto and intermittent fasting, I think are on a more gradual basis, bringing out similar things. So, but I love
Yeah.
this. I love the extreme. I love one really quick question. You said if he does them in Russia, he does them in this really beautiful place and there's water. And so are you actually if he does it in Russia, are you actually getting in the water even though you're not
No,
drinking water? No, you're just in the
no.
environment.
Yeah. So the environment is really important because ideally you want mountains and rivers close
Right.
to where you dry fasting because you are taking the water out of the environment.
Nice. Mm.
So, yeah.
Well, Amanda, so much love to you, and
Thank
let's
you. So
keep
lovely
in
to
touch.
lovely to see you again and
You
hear from you.
too.
And I know we've all had many stories over the last 4
Yes.
years and big journeys.
We'll share more as we go along here. Let's do some more of this because it's just really good
Absolutely.
to talk about
Yeah,
what.
and maybe I'll connect with you for a follow-up after my next fast, which will be
Yes.
coming up in October. I'm sure I'll have
Okay.
some more.
Beautiful. I would love to have you do that when you are back in your rhythm of being clear.
Right, having landed.
Yes. All right. Much love.
Thank you, Cary. Lots of
Ciao,
love to
ciao.
you.
Adios. We'll
Bye.
talk soon. Okay. Bye bye.